The Toronto Raptors probably aren't going to be very good this year, but they will be very, very soon. Welcome in or welcome back. Today is day 2 of me previewing every NBA team season, and for day number 2, we are tackling the Toronto Raptors. Again, this order is selected by a wheel, so if your team hasn't showed up, it will. I'm going to create some sort of playlist that you'll get all 30 reviews if you are so interested. Now, the Toronto Raptors, as currently constructed, in my view, probably maybe a play-in spot. Maybe the 10th or ninth best team in the entire Eastern Conference. Now, that's not to say that I don't think they have good players. I actually have a lot of stock in Scotty Barnes specifically. I love Emmanuel Quickly. And R.J. Barrett, especially post-international play, R.J. Barrett, the bump that he receives after putting Canada across his chest, is just so huge, and I have a lot of stock in that. I'm just not positive that those three things, even though they are all spectacular, are enough to compete with the very competitive East. We'll start with the biggest piece here. Again, I have so much stock in Scotty Barnes. I was a big fan of him coming out of Florida State. I thought that his raw metrics were very good, and even coming into the draft, he was obviously getting Kawhi Leonard comparisons, but I think that he is starting to really find his form into being the next Kawhi light. Not in the sense of like a Pat McCaw from Chicago, but his own version of Kawhi Leonard. Maybe a more rambunctious, a more emotional Kawhi Leonard, but Kawhi Leonard nonetheless. I have been a really big proponent in the past of Point Scotty. His ability to read the floor has increased over the last 3 years in the league, and I don't expect that to dwindle anytime soon. But I would like to see him be more of a primary ball handler, more of a primary decision maker. You had R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly last year for a lot of that, and prior to them, there was more comfortable point guards that manage those kind of duties for Scotty. But I think Scotty's next level in development is going to be that facilitator role. Now, he obviously still needs to work on his efficiency around the rim and through the mid-range game, and especially in the three-point line, because I think last year he shot not a horrific, but definitely not a respectable 34% from the three-point line. So if he's able to step out of his comfort zone a little bit more and facilitate more and potentially take more threes, I think that we could see a very, very good Scotty Barnes, because you have to remember, last season, he was averaging 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists while always being the primary defender for the other team's best player, only shooting like 15 to 17 times a game. I'd have to imagine that in year 3, the Raptors are going to be more inclined to essentially give Scotty the keys and tell him that this is your show now. So imagine that kind of production, shooting instead of the 15 to 17 times a game, 25 times a game. This could be a real game changer for the Toronto Raptors. I mentioned it before already, but the Olympic bump that R.J. Barrett gets after putting Canada across his chest is nothing to scoff at. I think there's a lot of revisionist history when it comes to that draft class that he was a part of. It was Zion, and then it was Ja Morant, and then it was R.J. Barrett. R.J. Barrett very much deserved to be the third pick in that draft. It's just that his upside wasn't as big as Ja Morant's or Zion's. And I think we'd have to look at that with rose-colored glasses maybe, because Zion, when healthy, is phenomenal. He is an absolute beast. The problem is that you don't get that healthy Zion very often. And with Ja Morant, he was obviously spectacular. He puts on highlight reels every single night. But it's not the same. He has had some off-court troubles that he had to deal with, and I believe that he is coming back from, but he's also had injury issues. He had to miss essentially the whole season after serving the 25-game suspension last year. I think he played 5 or 6 games and then had to go again. So R.J. Barrett has kind of been looked at as this consolation prize, and I don't think that we need to view it that way. Again, after this bump, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an R.J. Barrett season where he's averaging 22, 25 points a game, shooting a really high efficiency from the three-point line, because that's what he was doing for Canada. Playing in that system, too, playing off of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jamal Murray, was able to get him so many open looks that he became more comfortable in his own play style. And if we take that mentality and the Project Point Scotty fiasco If both of those things can hit at the same time, we're probably looking at a really efficient RJ Barrett as well. The last bit is a twofer. I love Emmanuel Quickley. I loved fast point guards. I believe in his ability to be a lead guard, even though I think early on in his career he was kind of slighted to be that spark plug, microwave kind of guy off the bench. I believe in his maturity in the game to allow him to be this main facilitator, or in my case, in my example, a secondary facilitator behind Point Scotty. So having this opportunity, having more comfortability in a season, especially when you know that you're probably not going to be a top 4, a top 5 seed, we are probably fighting for a play-in spot, you have the ability to grow in your game. You have the ability to make mistakes and it not be so detrimental to a team that it could cause you to be out of the playoffs entirely. Another piece that I really like in that system is a newly acquired piece in Davion Mitchell. Now, I was really high on Davion coming out of college, coming out of Baylor. I really thought that he was going to be this super menace. You know how we view Alex Caruso and Drew Holiday and Lou Dort and all these guys? That's what I felt like Davion Mitchell was coming into the draft. And I think that he still could be that. It's just going to have to be at a much, much lesser role, especially coming off the bench behind Emmanuel Quickley. I want nothing but the best for him. And I think at bare minimum at this stage, he can be that gritty, hard-nosed defender that every team needs. So if you add what he is, what he could be, to a blossoming trio in Scotty, RJ, and IQ, this has roots. This has legs to be a very good team in the near future. Now, as far as the future is concerned, I'm not sure that there is this no doubt home run prospect that is going to be available for the Raptors to get in the near future. Cooper Flagg, the Capture the Flag project, is the most recent, the quickest one to try to achieve. But when you are competing for the bottom with the Wizards and the Hornets and the Bulls and a plethora of other teams, even including the Western Conference, I'm not sure that the Raptors are actually going to be bad enough to secure one of those top picks. It's going to take a miracle to get the number 1 pick entirely, but a top 3 pick for sure. So you're going to have to do it in the aggregate. You're going to have to find really good quality role players in the mid-lottery, at the late lottery, and some undrafted free agent guys. And I believe that the Toronto Raptors system has done such a good job in that endeavor in the past. Look at Pascal Siakam. Look at Fred VanVleet. It's very obvious that they have a keen eye for talent. And as long as you keep those same people in place, as long as you are having those people make those same decisions, I don't see how this could be any different for them going forward. Adding core depth guys, adding good quality role players to, again, that blossoming trio could be very, very dangerous for the rest of the league in 3 to 5 years. But that's all I got today. What do you think the Toronto Raptors are going to be? Let me know down in the comments. Check my links in the description. Be kind. Tell somebody you love them. I'll see you tomorrow.